Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We have some new faces here. That is brilliant. So we are the Sparring Speaker group. My name is not Barry Cranford. Don't read that. I'm Anthony. I'm still Anthony after all of this time. So today is an special event for two reasons. First is our traditional festive end of year lightning talks. And second, it's our first Ignite talks, meaning that slides will auto advance. So it's totally different flow to the whole event. Um, so the Aspiring Speakers Group has a mission to basically welcome new speakers, mentor and train them like towards whatever they need. If they need to do like a presentation at work, we can help them. If you want to become a developer advocate, can help you with the first steps, get you to conferences and things like that. And we are already 5 years old and have a few hundred people, so quite a fun small community, and I hope that you all have fun with us today. So, first of all, I would like to thank all of our speakers here. So, your own and only Carly Richmond that always co-hosts with me, Alex McLintock that hosted the last Lightning Talks and it's a common presence here. Chris, Diana, and Leena are also familiar faces, went to DevOps talks with us and generally gives talks around here. So we have Steve Paul with us as well. Nice to see you, and like some of our regulars and some of the new folks. So the way that it's going to work today is a bit different. So we have a list of speakers, which Alex is going to be the first. So I don't know, even before I start the slides, do you want to introduce yourself, Alex, or are you good?
I've
You
got a
are
slide for that, so don't worry about it.
fair enough. All right, so let me share my screen and let's go. And we are going to be sending you some invites for interesting events midway through the conversations. Let's go. Sorry, I'm giving spoilers of next talks. Can you all see my screen? Everybody good? So, Alex, I'm setting up. Are you ready? All right. So, one, two, three, let's go, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex McLintock, and welcome to my Ignite talk. This is the first time I've done an Ignite talk. We shall see how it goes. I have to thank my colleague Chinmaya for some of the information. Lots of you know that I do data platform talks a lot. It's something I talk about a lot. This is might be my first one on Azure. I have worked on Azure data platforms for a major Swiss bank, but the information that I've going to present to you has largely been worked on by my colleague and friend Chinmaya. And he supplied us with the following diagram. Can I get the timing right? No, I can't. We shall see. So this is the diagram. Now, don't worry, I'm not expecting to let you expecting you to see all of this and absorb all of it all at once. Don't worry too much about the detail. I think the thing to realize here is that this is a typical data platform, and the fact that we're doing it on Azure doesn't actually make a lot of difference. Data is essentially flowing from left to right according on this diagram. And so we're going to zoom in and look at each individual area in start. So let's start off with the data sources. So here we're typically using Azure Data Factory. And what that's doing is that's reading the databases of the operational data systems. So you might have normal relational databases, MySQL, Postgres, us, who knows, doing the actual work. And this is how we obtain the data for analytics. Also, there's third-party data sources that you might retrieve in different ways through REST APIs or some other coding technique. Typically, we're going to dump the data on some sort of cloud data storage. Now, this is distributed, it's resilient, but it doesn't behave quite like a traditional hard disk. You don't have random access, but it is resilient and good for clouds. Next, we're going to take that raw data and ingest it using Databricks. Now, Databricks is a popular implementation of Apache Spark. It's designed for programmers to process data in a distributed way. Typically, we're going to be writing to some column-orientated file format, such as Parquet. But in this case, we're using a slightly more a more advanced format called Delta Tables, which is a Databricks format. But we might also use Apache Iceberg or something else. And then what we're going to do is give that process data to the business users so that they can transform it. In this case, using a tool called dbt. But is that always enough? Sometimes users want to have the strength of a traditional data warehouse. That might include something like totaling up all the sales for every branch over every day and then bucketing them and stuff like that. So in that case, a data mart may be appropriate for use. But what do the business users really like from day to day? Well, they're most familiar with things like Power BI and Tableau, where they can drag and drop data to create their own charts. And so that's typically what they'll use there. Quite often, in this example, we provide an SQL interface through Dremio, and that might be used by advanced users or data scientists or data analysts and things like that. Or we might be pushing the data to some third-party application. Now, those are all the main data pipeline, but we have to have some cross-cutting concerns. So a lot of these jobs were kicked off by Azure Data Factory, and we also want a metastore to map the logical tables to actual physical tables on disk. But now we're starting to move into the things that are more generic, that are not actually part of a data platform, such as monitoring what's going on, who has access to what features, and so on. And then you have to think about something that's really true of almost every single Azure cloud platform is the DevOps. How do we deploy this in a reliable, resilient, repeatable way? And in this particular set of tools, we've got a lot of Azure tools, but there are other non-Azure specific tools that you can use as well. So what else can I tell you about that? I think so. This might be done once, or it might be done in a self-service way. I didn't really want to talk about the self-service thing at the top. Thank you very much, Anthony. But that's how we might implement data mesh. So we might build more of these for individual departments or as required. Thank you very much. I've been Alex McLintock. If you want to chat to me about your data career or your data problems, please use this URL and book a Zoom call with me. Thank you very much. I didn't actually realize we had time for questions. I see Isaac has his hand up. Is
No,
that okay?
let's go for it. Actually, I know. Wow,
I
that is
can
the
wait for the
entire
video.
data strategy
Yeah,
in 5 minutes. That is impressive.
thank you very much. Isaac, did you want to unmute yourself? Can you?
I didn't have a question. Sorry, if I had my
Oh,
hand
no
up, that
worries.
was a clap. It was supposed to be.
Oh, thank you.
I think someone else did though.
Owen, was that a clap or a question?
That was just applause. Well done.
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, I thought it was I thought it was a hand up.
Yeah. So, uh,
Thank you very much.
host, since I can't move out of the screen, so if anyone has questions, please shout the question here in the chat. All right, Alex, that was brilliant, brilliant flow. Love your presentation.
I was supposed to fluff more and put more mistakes in so that everybody else felt more confident.
No,
No matter how badly I do, I can't be as bad as Alex did it.
right, so
I
Isaac has
have
a
a quick
question.
question, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Very quick.
So obviously you've just spoken about Azure quite a lot. Is it still applicable to other cloud providers, like the general architecture and stuff? Is my understanding that they all kind of do similar stuff with
Yes.
different names. Is that true?
I think for most of the major clouds, you typically have the same stages, the same boxes, and the tools might be different. In some cases, such as the DBT box, you might use the same tool. It's only really where you are moving to, say, Amazon AWS, you won't be able to use the Azure tool for that. So that's one of the reasons why I do this architecture diagram is because it's applicable to so many situations, not just as a. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. All right, so I don't even need to introduce Carly, but I'm going to give her a chance to introduce herself, unless you prepare slides like Alex as well, Carly.
Oh, just start. It's fine.
All right, so let me. One thing about Google Docs is it should remember the time here. We have to put this every time, but let's go. So ready, Carly?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Carly Richmond, and today I want to talk to you about LLM observability. I'm going to use OpenLit and TypeScript specifically, but I want to show you basically the ideas of why it's slightly different from traditional observability and what kind of information we can glean. It's basically different because LLMs are a black box and it's not always immediately clear what they're doing. So for example, if you get an agent that's calling multiple tools, it can sometimes be difficult to see what's actually happening, what tools are calling and why. So with this lovely example that I've got, I'm going to try and show you some of the signals we've got. So it's a very simple travel planner for anyone wanting to escape the cold of the UK at Christmas. It can generate an itinerary based on weather and flight information. The architecture of the system is basically a TypeScript application written using the AI SDK, which is instrumented with OpenLit, which generates OpenTelemetry signals under the covers that go through a proxy and a collector, and then eventually into a backend, in this case, Elastic. So we initialize it using openlit.net, similar idea for Python 2, specifying an application name, environment, the endpoint we're sending to, and I've disabled batching for this demo. I wouldn't do that in production. That just doesn't sound like a good idea. You have to do this in the entry point where you're actually calling the AI. So here's another thing I had to do that was specific to AI SDK because it was masking the telemetry. So if you have a telemetry option such as this experimental one, you might need to add that. It then starts picking up stuff automatically. So it's going to give you the prompts that have been submitted, and that's the full prompt, including the additional context. It'll also show you the results, and it pulls in this information pretty much for any model provider. It also gives you useful metrics that we can put in pretty dashboards. So things such as token usage, response time, and we can also track this for multiple different types of models from different providers running foundational in the Ether and other places. But when it comes to tracing, we can actually see these tool calls and what the LLM is actually doing, which is really important. So I've got an example here where the LLM is calling 3 different tools, one to get foreign office guidance and other elements as well. But there's other things we need too. So evaluations is where we use another LLM as a judge to evaluate the quality of the resulting text and to try and pick up on particular defects which might be appearing. The available evaluations in OpenLit is covering hallucinations and inaccuracies, toxic content, which is really not a good idea to put out in the world, and also biases based on protected characteristics such as gender and socioeconomic status. So in order to initialize evaluations, you do openlit.evals, and then this is for all of them or specify the particular one, having the provider, the API key, and set collect metrics to true to make sure it's going to send into the appropriate backend. Then when we get our final result, which I can pull via the onFinish hook in AI SDK, we can pull out the relevant context, which is your messages and your tool results, along with the prompt and text, and allow it to measure and evaluate from via OpenAI. It will then pick up useful things such as factual inaccuracies and those other types of issues I came with before. So in this example, the result said that we were going to visit the Brandenburg Gate in Madrid, which is not Madrid, it's in Berlin. So it's managed to pick that up. The last thing is guardrails, and this is not just kind of assumed guardrails that a model should have relating to particular types of bad content. It's also particular topics that you don't want your large language model agent to be talking about. So the three that are available is restricted topics is you saying, I don't want to talk about this, sensitive topics, and also prompt injection to detect particular types of attacks. Now, it's not going to stop the LLM doing this. It's going to get you to detect it. So what happens is we use OpenLit guard and we initialize again, similar with provider, collect metrics and API key. The bit that's different is we can specify valid and invalid topics that we want to be detected if the response starts to talk about that. Then when we get the final result, you just pass the resulting text through via guards.detect. And since we've got collect metrics set to true, it will send through into Elastic, as well as the case here where it's going to actually output to logs. So this is an example. So in this particular case, my resulting travel itinerary was talking about substance abuse and illegal things. I don't encourage you to ask questions of this of an LLM, but this shows you an example of how it picks things up. If you want to check out the code, the QR code is there and you can go and have a look. If I'm happy to answer any questions. And thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Carly. That was amazing. I have a question on my own. TypeScript only, or is the JDK multilingual? Can I use this with Java or Kotlin or something like that?
It has two language SDKs. It's got one for Python and it's got one for TypeScript. There are other alternative tools you can use which work in a similar way. So if you're interested in stuff for Java, I'd recommend having a look at something like LangTrace. So LangTrace works with LangChain. It can work with other, kind of AI SDK providers, but it's built by the same people. So if you're using, like, for example, LangChain for J, there might be an equivalent LangTrace you can use alongside it, but I'd need to double check that because I've not dug into the Java side. If not, you can look at other capabilities depending on web provider. So for example, if you look at kind of Microsoft Circles, they've got specific evaluation libraries that you can use for .NET. So out there in the Java ether somewhere, there will be something that you can use.
Any other questions for Carly? No, Carly. So I'm going to ask you another question since I blocked on my screen. You do the honors of sharing the links for the Vox talks and things like that already.
Oh yeah, sure.
So anyone that didn't join us, Carly is going to join us early. We are working with DevOps to put you in the big DevOps conference 2026. And Carly will take over and share you the links for the call for papers and things like that.
Yeah, so I'll just put this in the meeting chat so you've got it. So the big announcement is that DevOps UK CFP is available and open now. The main CFP is open till the 9th of January. I'll put the link in the chat as well so that you've got a hold of it. But us, as part of kind of this aspiring speakers group, we do collaborate with DevOps UK to run an aspiring speaker session on one of the days of the conference, where it's running kind of small lightning talks of 10 minutes and, on a stage in front of audience members at DevOps UK. You also get assigned a mentor, and we try and do a trial run as well to basically help you to give your first talk on a stage rather than online, which I know can be a different experience. If you're interested, I'm going to put the link in the chat for both the forum and the general DevOps UK CFP, depending on how confident you are and whether you're just getting started or are more established. Please do submit. We'd love to see some talk ideas. We'll keep our kind of aspiring speakers one open till probably end of January. And then we'll review and let people know based on the number of slots we've got who we can accept. If you've got any questions, if you want to run a talk idea by us because you're not sure, please do let myself and Anthony know. We're more than happy to help. And we'd love to see some submissions from all of you.
Right. Alex, you have a question? You're on mute.
I've got to do it at some point, haven't I? That wasn't deliberate. I just wanted to reiterate something you said at the very beginning, which is that, this sort of thing, you've got myself and Carly who've done these talks a fair number of times, but really, if you want to do this for the first time, go for it. I've done one of the DevOps talks, or if you just want to do a talk here, it's really good fun. You don't have to be as swish and as fancy as Carly's wonderful images. Go for it, is what I was going to say. Okay.
Plus, you are going to get mentoring, right? So
Yeah,
Carly
happy to
herself
mentor people if people want, if they think I can help them.
So we have some of our mentors here. Carly herself is a mentor. Steve Paul is a mentor. We had Laura that is always with us. So you're going to get mentors with some of the best speakers in the industry. So it's an amazing opportunity for sure. All right, so Diana, you are the next person. How are you today? Do you want to introduce yourselves or have you prepared some slides?
I can introduce myself on the first slide. Just make sure we go back to the first one.
All right. Yeah, I gave people some spoilers of
Yeah, no worries.
So are you ready?
Yes.
So let's go 1, 2, 3, and take it away, Diana.
Thank you. Hi, I am Diana. I'm a senior software engineer at Chainalysis, and today we are going to talk about the chaos that is Christmas cookies through the lens of bugs. Think of it like tech, but with more flour and sprinkles. Bug number 1, missing requirements. You start baking and surprise, you have no idea what kind of cookies you are making. That's kind of a classic, but how did this happen? Well, no documentation, no clear specs. Off by 1 error. This is like when you need 12 cookies, but you make 11 or maybe 13 every single time. In programming, this is the off by 1 error, but we can just call it a chaos Tuesday in the kitchen. When the butter is not at room temperature, your dough refuses to cooperate. But no one told you that the butter was a dependency. And now your dough is broken and angry, is having a meltdown. When you are cooking with your baking buddy, you might run into merge conflicts. You both add ingredients at the same time. Double sugar, no sugar, who knows what's even happening anymore. The dough is just too much. We could also have inconsistent environments. You cook some cookies on a tray, some in a pot. Your oven needs 12 minutes. Your mom's oven needs 7. Your friend's oven, it has opinions. And you never know which will break your cookies. And you can also have a broken pipeline. An egg is poorly cracked, the frosting bag bursts, the deployment failed. Your cookies just can't scale under pressure. Then we will have some technical tech debt. You use the last year sprinkles, the ones that we don't want to talk about, the ones that taste like regret. Now your cookies are full of it. Don't do that, just saying. We also have the cookie that works on my machine. That is, it looks perfectly before baking, but after is just a flat chaos. It worked fine when you tried it on your tray in your oven. We could also have an unexpected edge case. One cookie fuses itself to the tray, or maybe more, in ways science can't explain. And then you get this scrambled mess when you try to just take them off. Then we have performance issues. Your dough may not be raising enough, or maybe it starts spreading, and suddenly it's just one giant cookie. It's scalable, sure, but is it intended? Maybe not so much. Someone could just eat your test batch before even testing. Maybe they eat it too soon and get burned. And no one ever learns this lesson. No one ever comes back with feedback. It's just a dark day for cookies everywhere. And finally, we have production outage. The smoke alarm goes off. The kitchen is in chaos, and you blame the system. Maybe you will try again next year, but you don't want to iterate on that yet. This is the end of bugs, but it's not the end of the journey. Despite all the chaos, we just need to stay resilient and to go further through this. Because there is still magic there, like through all the bugs, all the mistakes, all the failures, all the smoke alarms, there is always some sweet result at the end, both in baking and in tech. And we can think of baking like iteration, like tech, it's an iterative process. The first batch might flop, but you'll just adjust, you'll test again, and eventually you will reach a state where you are happy with your results. Testing is crucial, of course. This is the key. You don't skip the test batch. If you do, you'll end up eating your mistakes. Trust me, I've been there. But yeah, you need to be thorough with your testing and to include more people in it. And then the chaos is inevitable in cookies, in text, in life. But it's how you adapt, how you react, and basically how you handle the chaos that counts. And despite everything, we deliver. Whether it's a perfect cookie or a semi-edible disaster, we somehow make it work and deliver against all odds, even a dog stealing our cookies. This was me. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and may your holiday baking and cooking be bug-free, or hopefully at least less chaotic. Happy holidays.
Yay, Diana, that was amazing. Love the teams, love the photos, and I'm totally hungry and I want some cookies now. Like you are to blame. Any
Thank
questions for Diana?
Can I have a cookie?
I haven't prepared them yet, but sure, a virtual one.
All right, Diana, that was an amazing. So Diana was also someone pretty new to speaking, like I don't know, a couple of years ago. She recently got like, was it an award from the woman,
Yeah, but it wasn't for the public speaking part. I was a finalist for the community award, and yeah, I won essentially the community award with thanks to my involvement in different communities for the past year.
one way or another, like it's
Yeah.
also work that you've been doing. I've seen you giving talks all over the place. So yeah, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
All right, so Chris,
Hi.
you are going to be the follow-up here if I can find the escape key. Uh, here we go. So, Chris, do you have some slides to introduce yourself, or do you want to introduce yourself first?
I don't. I'll just say I'm a Java engineer, which should become fairly obvious in these slides.
Fair enough. So, how to create an immutable list in 5 minutes with auto advanced slides every 15 seconds. Are you ready, Chris?
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, take it away.
Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm going to tell you how to create an immutable list in Java. So an immutable list, that's an index sequenced collection, which can't change once been set. So how do we do this? Well, it's actually fairly straightforward, but I have a question. Why do we need immutable lists or immutability in the first place? A lot of people will say concurrency. This is not strictly true, although it does have some issues. There are concurrency things which don't require it. I'll come back to that later. In order to understand, we need to know that modern object-oriented languages are derived from Smalltalk, but also owe great debt to C. Now, C had pointers, which was an easy way of representing data in memory, and object-oriented languages use pointers to pass these objects around. But what that means is that everyone is pointing to the same object. So if you change it one place, it changes for everyone. What you really need is a way to pass by values so that you get separate copies of it. Now, Java had the clone function. This is something that no one actually really used. And so we end up in a situation where we need to find a different way. Hence, we make things immutable. The problem comes when you want to construct a list, because often you want to iterate over the list and add items sequentially. How do you do that? Well, the problem is in Java, there is an add function, but that actually changes the existing list. And if you try to do it on an immutable list, it'll throw an exception. So are there any other options that we can use? Well, the streams interface has a concact operation. This is a simple way of combining two streams, but all the heavy work is done in the toList function at the end. Other options you might come up with, for example, I've had AI suggest that you should convert it to a mutable list and then add it and then copy back to an immutable list afterwards. But this is just going to create lots and lots of lists. And okay, so I think this is getting a bit out of hand now. We don't need to use reflection to change the list. Let's have a look at other languages, see what other languages do in terms of this type of processing. In JavaScript, for example, you have the span operator, the dot, 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 which will actually, all that does is actually copy the list over. So this again is not very efficient. Maybe we look at some Java libraries such as Vava, and we see that this has an immutable list out the box. It has an append operation which returns a new list. So how does this work? Well, it's linked lists. Basically, you have a head going to a value of the item, and then the tail going to the next list. And if you want to append, you just create a new list with that value and the tail being the previous list. Now, this is probably the best way of doing it, but it is not very, as the list gets larger, it becomes quite bad performance. Now, earlier on, I mentioned that mutable arrays, for example, you can do some really good things with these. For example, sorting, you can split each item into different segments sequentially and then bring them back together, combining the sorted lists using this algorithm. You iterate over the combined adjacent arrays and you swap with the minimum of the left or the right at each point and advance by one. If right's lower, that advances by one. If left was the same as the item, it will advance by one if lower, or swap with the swap place. And using this technique, we can segment the list into smaller and smaller segments until we get to sorted lists at the bottom, because one segment is sorted, and then we recombine adjacent segments, sorting them as we go, and we end up with a concurrent algorithm which relies on mutable data in order to work. So that's it from me. I hope you've learned something about immutability. I've been Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That was amazing. I loved how you combine your own diagrams, generated one with, I don't know, Nano Banana or Gemini or things like that. And like those are so impressive nowadays that you can even tell them apart. So quite good content. Any questions for Chris? Yeah, immutable lists are specific, so Alex have one.
I thought the main reason for using an immutable list was precisely concurrency, but you kind of said that's not the case. Have I misunderstood?
So the problem with immutable lists is the fact that we have every modern language uses pointers to represent the data. So that means that if you pass a pointer around, it's the same item. And so if you change it in one place, it changes it somewhere else. Now, with concurrency, this obviously can make it worse, because you then have like two or three things all doing different things, but could be referring to the same data item. But it doesn't have to be the case. And as I sort of demonstrated with the merge sort, you can have algorithms which work really well, which do rely on mutability.
Those factor methods are used for many other things, like for instance, empty lists, you can use like flight weight patterns so that you don't recreate empty lists. You just point to a single place in memory. You can return a specialized implementation, say up to 10 elements. You just return an array. There are things like that done in that .off method. I'm trying to get Donald Rabb, who wrote the Eclipse collections, former Goldman Sachs collections, to come in. It will probably be a London Java community thing. But yeah, he's speaking lots of interesting things. We have value objects coming, so less collections in general may become an interesting topic in Java. So.
Yeah. So I'd like to say, Chris, that if there's one subject that you shouldn't do as an Ignite talk, it's this one, because like it's like, hey, the world is flat, let's move on. And it's like, no, yeah, you've got to come and do this in more detail, right?
Yeah,
Because it's such an also interesting topic, and it's so wide and it's got so many edges that it would be really cool to do it as a full-blown thing. You should submit it to DevOps.
Yeah.
Don't you think this would be a good thing to do in the proper
Yeah,
CFP?
absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
maybe a longer, I
expand
guess. Steve, were you thinking more like a 15-minute?
As much as you could go. I mean, it depends on how much content you have, but looking at different languages and how they do it and what the common issues are and whether you can solve it in Java, and it's I could easily see it being a big talk, but certainly longer than an Ignite talk.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
But Steve, if you maybe have some opportunities for him to open for another speaker on one of the LGC events, that may be a great way to go.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to come and with loads of options always with this, we can certainly host people who would like to do a bigger talk, a longer talk, but also we do the round tables. So if you just want to come and talk to people about, hey, I've got this idea, what do you think? You can talk to 20 odd different Java developers and they'll give you their opinion. Always. Yeah.
All right. Other than joining the London Java community, so you can have access to Steve and submit talks through his talks. I can't type on the chat here without like taking away my screen, but as we have a website, aspiringspeakers.co.uk. If you want to join, is aspiringspeaker.co.uk/join. Just submit the form and you're going to get access to the Slack channel, and like we have our mentors and your community members there, and like you can keep up with the community events. All right, so our next speaker, thank you very much, Chris. Our next speaker is Leena. How are you today, Leena? Do you want to introduce yourself, or are you going to do it as part of the slides?
I'm going to do it as part of the slide, but yeah, I'm great. I'm
All
excited to
right.
be back.
Really nice to see you here. So 15 seconds per slide, and I gave spoilers of Leena's slides.
You ruined my joke.
Apologies for that. All right, so are you ready, Leena?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and off you go, Leena.
Okay, so hello, what a great session it's been already. I'm Leena Mooneeram, and this year I'm giving you the gift of the gap. So it's not a framework, it's not a productivity hack, or not a new way to optimize your calendar. It's about something we're actually very bad at giving ourselves, especially this time of year. And so, yes, this is a Love Actually reference. I'm using the cue cards, and this is me acknowledging that choice and the fact that I will probably watch this film at least 3 times over the next few weeks. So we'll politely move on. It is nearly Christmas and the new year. And this is supposed to be the one time of year where we actually slow down a little bit. However, most of us are probably still trying to clear our inboxes, finish our tasks, and tie up those loose ends, all before the end of the week. But this is one of the few socially acceptable moments to stop and pause, not to optimize absolutely everything, but to leave some things unfinished and actually be okay with it. And so what do I do? I'm a platform engineer, and what I do is optimize systems. And that's what I do most of the time. I look for friction, for inefficiency, and places where we as engineers could run things better. So I optimize pipelines, costs, dashboards, reducing costs, streamlining those pipelines and watching metrics. But there's always something that could be tighter, that could be faster, and actually could be a bit more efficient. And also, platform engineers are constantly inundated with requests for help. So alongside that, we have that steady stream coming in, which actually usually I like. I like being useful and being someone that people rely on, but it adds up. And this time of year, I really feel it. And I don't schedule a break, which I should do. I usually assume I'll take one later. And I imagine for all of you, later never happens, never arrives. And sometimes it can look like taking a break is failure and it's weak. But somewhere along the way, we learned that it looks like failure, and that rest is something that you earn rather than something that you need. But really, it's not that. It's infrastructure maintenance for you. And it isn't failure. It's necessary, it's boring, and it should be non-negotiable. So we should skip, and if you skip it, things degrade. So here are the reasons. We've got a number of reasons why the gap matters, not as just a nice idea, but as a practical requirement. So one of the first reasons is that your brain consolidates when you take a rest. When you stop pushing in new things in, it actually gets a chance to process what you have. You stop forcing it to perform, and it finally gets time to look at what we've got and how you can organize things. And actually, learning happens when you stop forcing all that stuff in and you take a breath. And it's where experience turns into learning, where the noise turns into music, maybe, and something you can actually use. And sometimes things click without effort. Reason two, this one's really easy to underestimate because when it works properly, you barely notice it happening. So you take a break, you take a breather, and what happens is your stress drops and you pause. And it's not because the work has disappeared, but sometimes it's because your nervous system finally gets the signal actually that it's safe to just relax a little bit and just ease into what you're doing. The pause interrupts your cortisol spikes. And before, ideally, it turns into burnout, and before it turns into exhaustion. So it stops that inexplicable irritation that you get at very small things. And the creativity comes back actually when you're not focusing on 100 different things. And it comes back when you've stopped actively trying to force that creativity. The space actually does that work for you, and better decisions flow. So you make better decisions, not faster ones, but better ones, the kind you actually don't have to immediately clean up or schedule in some tech debt cleanup later. And really, that gap, the rest, is the prerequisite. It isn't the opposite of productivity, and it isn't a cop-out. It's the prerequisite for anything that is sustainable. It's what will help you be your best work self when you return to work. So finishing off, what you need to do is actually mind the gap. This week, be kind to yourself, log off, lie down, eat that mince pie, and let your brain refresh and do the work that you can't force it to do. Thank you.
All right, Leena, that was amazing. Very nice to have you back here. Any hints for standard nerds like me that if I go to a tropical paradise like, I don't know, Tasmania or something like that, I'll probably be on my cell phone and mobile and like laptop most of the time. So
Yeah.
how do you really get out of the grid and like fight the temptation of looking at screens, you know?
It's very hard because those people that perhaps that know me quite well will know that I've just come back from a 10-week rest, traveling around Southeast Asia, which has been great. And yes, absolutely, I kept checking Slack. I didn't walk away completely, but I wasn't fully invested. And what was interesting is I became less and less invested, obviously, as the time went on. But for me, I kind of was looking at it as a way of just keeping in contact with my friends and my colleagues as well. My advice would be don't be hard on yourself if you do it. We're all going to do it, but just understand the benefits of the rest and what you will gain.
Fair enough. Any other questions for Leena?
I do have one. So one thing I think of is manager support for looking at people to see if they need that gap. Because I think sometimes, particularly if you've got a manager that's more, I don't want to say slave driver, but maybe a bit more trying to push, that they end up actually exacerbating and making the problem worse. So do you have any guidance for managers off the back of that?
I think it's really interesting. I mean, I can only really approach it from a perspective of a peer, and perhaps engineers and colleagues that I mentor or work with. And I think again, it's being aware. And so work isn't the end all and be all. And I suppose it's just like understanding if you put all your effort in now, you actually don't get to spread it longer term. And it's taking the bigger picture and being aware of your colleagues and your friends.
Yeah, fair point. I think that's a good point for all of us. Actually, it's not just managers' responsibility, it's a team collective responsibility to look out for each other. So that's good advice.
Do you have any advice? Because I know you manage a number of kind of engineers and
I do have a couple of suggestions. So if I was looking at it from a manager point, I mean, I manage advocates and burnout is real because particularly when you look at conference season and they're bouncing about between events, travel and prep can really weigh people down. So the things I look at is, when it comes to deadlines, I try and encourage them to think about which ones are movable and which ones they shouldn't deal with right now. So if you're bouncing between events, maybe trying to commit to writing a blog post right now is not the best thing.
Yeah.
I also, I'm happy to help particularly juniors try and figure out and prioritize. So that's a discussion you can help coach them through. And coaching means asking questions to get them to find the solution. Don't impose it. And then I think the final thing I've realized is I'm not also going to get it perfect. And sometimes if I'm stressed, I may end up inadvertently pushing that, and you just acknowledge the mistake and apologize. Because nobody's perfect, even managers. So that's my main three, I would say.
Absolutely. I think prioritization is really key, but also transparent prioritization.
Yeah.
So don't keep that priority list in your head. I would think, try and be as transparent with it as possible, because it also helps people not to give you more or not to expect more.
Yeah, exactly. And then giving people tools, particularly juniors, to push back and that it's okay to say no. I think sometimes particularly certain demographics as well, are not comfortable saying no, and you need to make them aware it's not a weakness to say no.
Yes.
All right, folks. So yeah, we had our last event of the year. Like, I'm very happy. Thanks for all of you that took your time to be with us today. I should have said that in the beginning, but we are being recorded. It's going to be posted on YouTube in a few days. Don't forget to subscribe your idea, subscribe to DevOps talk, subscribe to our next Lighting Speakers talk. Bother this man Steve Paul here to give talks on the London Java community. Let's make 2026 count. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon. Thank you very much for everything this year.
Can I just say thank you to both you and Carly for managing these and running these. And they've been great. They're a great community. So thank you.
You're welcome. And also see if anyone has any ideas of stuff they want to see next year, if they want to run these again, if there's particular topics they want help with, if it's Q&A, if it's a format. We welcome any tips and advice. So do let us know what kind of things you'd like to see.
Alex, you don't need to raise your hand anymore.
I don't want to just interrupt everybody every time. So Dan had an interesting question, which I think most of us have commented on in the chat, which was roughly aimed at the speakers and perhaps the audience as well. How did the fact that this was an Ignite talk affect your talk or the experience? And I think I'll just, for me, it was the fact that I forced myself to say as little as possible, because I'm fairly wordy and will try to get as many facts in as possible. But I had to try and say what's the most important thing to say and only say that. So don't worry about the pauses and don't worry about. I don't know if anybody else had any comment now that you've done the Ignite talk. Is there anything you wanted to add? Just unmute yourself and say it.
I think it goes a lot faster than you think it does.
Yeah,
Whether you think it's going to.
it does. And then I think in terms of the amount of time to prepare, so the first one I ever did, I probably over prepared and took ages, and it probably took closer to the same amount of time to prepare a 15 to 20. But as you keep doing them and as you get familiar with the format and comfortable and realizing that, it doesn't have to be perfect and you'll get there, it gets quicker and quicker. So like this one today, not that I'm wanting to show off or anything, but because I already had slides from a longer talk as well, it probably took me about an hour to sort it totally. So you do get quicker with them as well.
I think everybody did an amazing job. It's like you should all come and talk and do a proper talk. No, I don't mean that, but you were all really good. I didn't see any reason. How do I put this? Often with Ignite talks, people lose the plot, and that's sort of the idea, to try and get to stress you out and get you to learn some of those techniques. But I didn't really see any of that. I think you should all be taking those small talks and turning into something bigger if you haven't already, and put them out there, because they're all good ideas and you're all good speakers.
Leena?
Yeah, I was actually following off from what Steve was saying as well. I'm wondering, from those that have had more experience doing the Ignite talks, are they a good way of testing the subject matter for a bigger talk, or do you find that it's a whole different thing of itself, that you have, that there are only some subjects that are suitable for Ignite talks, or both?
Some topics are not suitable for Ignite talks. I think my topic was it was a small enough example. If you want to try and cover reams of code, it's not going to happen. So it's good for trying certain topics because you get information out quickly. But if you're wanting to cover a topic that's super nitty-gritty, I'd recommend like a short, like a 15-minute.
Yeah.
The other thing that's quite advantageous is that quite often Ignite talks are undersubscribed for conferences. So for example, DevOps Days, they get so many submissions for the long cut talks and not as many for Ignites. So if you're looking to try and get into a conference and get practice at bigger ones, sometimes it's a good way to get in the door as well because you have less competition.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that any subject's suitable, but as Carly said, it depends whether it goes in the weeds. But I would also say that these things, if you look at it, this is slightly longer than a TikTok. So don't think of it as it's not a cut down talk, it's just a different structure. And you can take any subject, you just got to do it right. The reason that we like user groups and conferences like Ignite Talks is it's such an easy way for people to get onto the speaking platform, because the stress is so little. You're only doing it for 5 minutes, and so it's a great way in. But you obviously, you've all spent a lot of effort trying to figure out how to get your talk to fit that space. So you put just as much effort, but in a different way for doing these things. What am I saying? I think you can cover everything. And in fact, I love Ignite talks, which are random, like the blind ones. So if you're up for trying out your speaker credentials and your expertise, come along to the RJC and we'll give you a blind one where you won't know what the slides look like until the first one turns up.
Thanks to Chris, you raise your hand up again.
Yeah, so I've kind of done a couple of Ignite talks before, and the last one I did, after I did it, I've discovered a page where someone was talking about how they prepared for their Ignite talk, and they said it took them about 8 hours to put everything together, and a large part of it was basically working out how long everything's going to take to say, and then working out how you can fit between the different pages, because what a lot of people do is they think, well, I'm going to display this and then I'm going to talk about it for 15 seconds and then I'm going to display the next thing. So when I did my one, I actually tried to do it so that I had about 4 or 5 screens which I could just talk over for, say, a minute. And I knew that it wouldn't matter too much as long as I kind of hit what each next screen was going to be talking about, roughly the right time, then it should fit in. I don't know if it worked very well, but that was at least what I was trying to do. I think I agree with what Carly was saying in terms of technical stuff. So shortly before I was doing this, I was chatting to a colleague about it, and he said, You really like to go into these really obscure technical things, don't you? And at that point, it suddenly clicked that I had basically written this Ignite talk assuming everyone would understand what I was doing. So, like all those little things where I had the little hamster with a comment, I thought those were the sort of things that people would be saying or thinking. And then I realized that actually, even if you've got people who are really good Java developers, they may not be thinking any of those things at all. And that was a kind of the moment where I then thought, should I really be doing this at all? But I, yeah, kept at it.
But it worked very well. In a more technical problem, like I'll just say, like you have more people. But
I think some of that stuff would work if you were in front of an audience because you could ask questions. Like one of the best Ignite talks I've ever seen was this someone, and she was basically teaching people how to sing this tune. And it was like each slide she would sort of like go over and say, now this goes like this, and then your turn, and it worked really well to the degree that if you actually watched it, you could not tell that the slides were changing every 15 seconds. It was just like a really nice sort of example, and I guess a demonstration of what you can do if you really put your mind to it. But yeah, and also Steve, just the point that you're saying about the blind thing, I think that is like a really good way to just get people into public speaking in the first place. Because if you're, you can just say, right, you're going to talk about this, and here's the slides, and you just talk about what you see. I think that's a really, really good way just to get people used to talking in front of an audience and not worrying about, saying
Yeah,
something wrong
exactly.
because 15 seconds later, new slide.
Yeah, my analogy for this is it's like if you learn to drive, you have to learn the mechanics of the car, you have to learn the laws, and then you have to learn about other drivers. And so to try to do all of that in one go is really difficult. And so you're taken through a process where you learn the bits you need, and you move forward. And I see Ignite Talks as being very much that very first thing of like stand up, get the car to to stall, but at least you tried it, and if it succeeds, great, you move on. And if it doesn't matter, you've only been on the stage for 5 minutes, nothing's hurt, you can try it again.
Right, folks, that was a great end of the year, last minutes of the talk again. It was a pleasure to having all of you here. Thanks for everything, and see you in 2026.
Yeah. Bye then.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.